So, how does a sharp, driven woman build one of the strongest appraisal networks in the country? And what happens when that same woman decides it's time to shake up how we bring new blood into this graying profession? On this episode, I sit down with Joni Pilgrim of Nationwide Appraisal Network, and we talk about her road into the industry, her work bringing in new trainees and women through programs like Rise, and what the future might look like for all of us riding out this weird, wobbly market. Stick around and you might just hear something that gives you hope.
ACI introduces ACI Sky Workbench, a cutting-edge cloud-based platform designed to streamline URAR appraisal report generation like never before. With seamless workflow integration, automated data management, and built-in compliance, Workbench empowers appraisers to work smarter, faster, and with greater accuracy. Visit aciweb.com for more info. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast with your host, Hal Humphreys.
Welcome back, everyone, to today's Appraisal Buzzcast. Let me bring back in our host, Hal Humphreys. Hey, Hal, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jim?
I'm doing good. Well, we are so excited to have Joni Pilgrim, the co-founder of Nationwide Appraisal Network, joining us. Let me bring her in. Hey, Joni.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Well, we're going to be talking about Joni's interesting route into the industry and how others can get in the industry and what the future has in store for the appraisal industry. So, Hal, take it away.
Joni, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I got to say, I'm intrigued by the name Joni Pilgrim. There's something about it that just kind of hits my ear in a really good way. My wife and I have, over the past several years, we've walked across the country of Spain twice on pilgrimage. So I've heard people call each other Pilgrim a lot. But I'm tickled that you're here. Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
You've got a pretty interesting story as to how you got into this industry. And typically when we have someone on the show, we ask them to kind of tell us how you got into the business, but I think that may be the bulk of what we do here. So tell us, what was your route to getting into the appraisal business?
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. It's one of those garage stories, right? Started the business from a garage, which in Florida is pretty rough because it gets hot here. So, yeah, just when I went to school, University of Central Florida, and I majored in hospitality management. I wanted to get into the restaurant business. And then I managed 3 or 4 stores here in the Tampa Bay area right out of college and quickly learned that that is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I exited that industry swiftly after a couple of years, and answered an ad in the classifieds. Remember the classifieds? I'm aging myself right now. Answered an ad in the classifieds for this was back in 2002, 2003. It was an appraiser who was looking to bring on a sales associate to help promote his business to local lenders, loan officers. So it was really strange. He did this cattle call interview at a Perkins over here in Clearwater, which, if you don't know what Perkins is, it's like this little breakfast restaurant chain, and which I thought was strange. But I was like, you know what? I'm looking for something new. I want to get into this. I knew nothing about appraisals, knew nothing about real estate. Really, I had just purchased my first home, and that was like, my introduction to what an appraisal was. My dad was in construction growing up. My mom was the legal secretary. I had nobody in my family was in the real estate business. So I was intrigued. Went to Perkins, brought my resume in hand. Not even joking, there was probably 40 to 50 other people in the foyer waiting area with resumes in hand applying for the same job. I got 2 minutes with this appraiser who asked me a couple of questions and I think realized that I didn't have any experience in the industry, but I was selling customer service and I was selling that I was hungry for trying this and, just give me a shot kind of a thing. Left the interview. A week went by, I hadn't heard anything. I called him, asked him, hey, just calling to see if you made a decision on the sales associate position. And he asked me what my name was, told him my name. He's like, hey, yeah, you know what? Good news. You're in the yes pile, but bad news. So is 30 other people. Give me about a week. I'm going to look through the resumes and I'll give you a call back if I'm interested. I'm like, okay, well, give it a week. And I don't have a job at this point. So time is of the essence because I quit my restaurant job. Um, Week went by, didn't hear from him, called him back and just said, hey, not sure if you made a decision yet. You said you were going to take a week. I wanted to call you back and see if you'd made a decision. And he goes, well, you know what? It's down to you and one other person. And I really liked your persistence. I think you bring a lot of that customer service to the plate, to the table, and let's give it a shot. If you're interested, show up on Monday, wear a suit, and may the best person win the position. And I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, okay, this is not a guarantee, but how bad do I want this? How bad do I want to learn something else? And I really, really wanted it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going to take the shot. And showed up at his house at 9 a.m. Monday morning wearing a suit. He answered the door. He's like, all right, you're ready to rock and roll. I'm going to show you how to sell appraisals today. We're going to hit the ground running. He introduced me to the other person that he had hired for that same position that I was essentially competing with for the job. And that person was my business partner to this day, Carrie Pinkert. So her and I hit it off really, really well. And, we worked for him for about a year and learned everything about appraisals, what to do and what not to do. And right about the end, when we decided to move into our own company, we that was right when a technology was starting to come on the scene for appraisals.
Yeah.
And, we needed a way to track payments. We needed a way to track appraisal orders, provide client updates, all the transparency, load in appraisal reports, things like that. That didn't really exist back then, but was starting to, there was some demand being created for better service and communication. And we were trying to get him to kind of buy into that. And he was of the mindset of like, nope, appraisals are never going to change. It is what it is. I'm not investing anything into that. We'll figure it out. And I just looked at Carrie one day and I was like, we can do this on our own. We don't need him. Let's open up our own business. And she was like, I'm with you. Let's go. And within 2 weeks, we opened up our own company. Back then, it was called All Star Mortgage Services because we had no idea what to call it. And we decided on All Star because we wanted to be an A name, so we would show up at the top of the yellow pages.
This is back in
When
the day.
back in the day, when as if anybody looked up appraisals in the yellow pages, we didn't know. So opened up our business in her garage. We went to the bank and we're like, "Hey, we're starting a company. We need to open up a business account." And they were asking us some questions and they're like, okay, well, here's a $500 credit card limit. Good luck, ladies. And we were just looking at it. We were like, woohoo, we got 500 bucks. So we purchased a fax copy printer all in one, two handheld phones, and we called every appraiser we could find in the yellow pages in every county in the state of Florida. That was our goal. We just wanted to cover the state of Florida. For every 100 no's, we would get one yes. And every time we got a yes, we would color that little county in our Florida map on our bulletin board. And once we got every county covered, we just hit the streets and started visiting lenders. Every lender that would let us in their office, we were telling our story. We're like, listen, we know you have your favorite appraiser in Tampa or Clearwater or Palm Harbor in this Tampa Bay area. But if you're ever doing a loan in Miami or Tallahassee or St. Augustine, we have appraiser relationships there. And they loved that concept. They were like, that's amazing because right now I just kind of dialed appraiser numbers and hope for the best. And we were like, no, we've got appraiser relationships established. We're going to manage the whole order from beginning to end. This was before appraisal management companies were actually a concept. This is 2004. Um, and so we just started, our orders would come in via fax. We would come in the office in the morning and they would be all over the floor. We'd pick up our papers and start, and because nobody knew how to do a CRM back then, it was, everything came over via fax. And we knew we needed a large lender to just kind of like legitimize our business, the model, and really just kind of like prove the concept. And we had this one company that we were like, this is who we want to go after. And it was Lending Tree. And we knew they were national and they were out in California. And we just called them every single day. I'm not kidding, for 2 or 3 weeks, leaving messages, calling back to see if anybody had a response. And they were like, not right now. We're not interested. Please go away. Please stop calling us. You're harassing us. And then one day we walked into the office or the garage, right? And there was probably 12 to 15 pieces of paper on the floor. I mean, the floor was just covered. And I'm like, what happened here? We thought the fax machine was on the fritz overnight when we weren't there, and we picked up the papers and it was orders from Lending Tree. And we were like, oh my gosh, they're giving us a shot. So we started processing it. And so we worked probably from 7 a.m. till midnight because they were out in California, just day in, day out, trying to get our processes right, trying to listen to their feed. We built our company based off of their feedback, basically. And they thought there was a time they were like, how many people work in your office? And we're like, we don't want to tell them because we didn't want them to think that we couldn't handle it. And we're like, oh, there's two of us. And they're like, we thought there was 60 people work in your office the way you girls handle these orders. And we're like, no, just us. And they're like, well, have you ever thought about expanding out of Florida? And we're like, do you have business for us in other states? They're like, we're a national lender. We love your concept. So we slowly started expanding, calling other appraisers in other states, and within 2 years, we were national. And Lending True was the big driving force behind that. And of course, we had to get an office at that point. So
I'm
we needed
I'm
help.
I am absolutely blown away by this story. There are a couple things I want to kind of drill down on a little bit. The first is I'm seeing this theme, Joni, throughout the entire story of persistence.
Yes.
You call the guy back looking for the job. He's narrowed it down to 30. You call him back again. He's like, you're being persistent. You're one of the last two. And then he pits you guys against each other, but you guys stick it out and do the thing. For every 100 calls, no's, you get a yes, one yes. I mean, that's another thing of persistence. And then I love the image of you guys working in a garage, pestering Lending Tree nonstop. And as you're telling that story, I'm almost envisioning like you going to downtown Tampa and taking a picture of some random office building and sending them out there. Here's where our office is, but
We had stock photos.
it's stock photos. It's such a good story. And the thing is, I think this is one of the keys to moving on to the next topic of conversation, which is people trying to get into this business. I think persistence is one of the most important things for people that want to become trainees or trainees that want to become appraisers. It's just, I don't want to say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way. Pester, pester, pester.
Yeah. How bad do you want it, right? You have to be persistent about your success, right? Because nobody's going to say, hey, Joni, here's a pretty little package all wrapped up for you. All you have to do is open it and you'll be successful. It doesn't happen that way. You truly have to go after it with everything that you have. I saw what this looked like 21 years later. I mean, I couldn't have imagined this, but like I could see, I'm like, I would talk to Carrie, I go, gosh, imagine 5 years from now. We would just kind of have those little 5-year vision boards kind of with the company. And to get there, we have to do all of these things in between, which requires us to be vulnerable, get rejected, be persistent, hear the no's, get that one yes, feel what that success looks like, keep trying, never, and think about, 4 years after we started the business, we had the housing market crash, right? Didn't see that one coming. And you just learn so much from those ups and downs of the industry, and the cycles, and just really kind of working with your lender partners, listening to the appraiser feedback. Even though appraisal management companies weren't like really a thing or a concept back then, we understood our role. You know what I mean? We were bridging the gap between the lenders and the appraisers and helping facilitate those relationships. I mean, I can remember, here's a funny story. Like Carrie and I, we were selling, sell, and then get back and do operations. We got magnets for our cars. that said All-Star Mortgage Services, put them on the side of our cars, and would go sell appraisals locally, right? Because we weren't flying around at that point. And anytime we would go over 45 miles per hour, the magnet would fly off the car. We'd have to pull over on the side of the highway, run and get the magnet, stick it on the side of the car. We did this like 10 times, and finally they were like, the magnets don't work. We're not doing it. We just gotta get a website, start marketing, things like that. And then we did trade shows. Our first trade show ever was out in Nevada
Okay.
and Las Vegas area. And we were told there was going to be 4,000 attendees there, so we printed 4,000 flyers because we thought for sure everybody would want a flyer on our company. And it's just those little things that you learn. You're like, okay, maybe just take 50 flyers and,
Yeah.
email afterwards. But there's so many things to learn. I could probably write a book of what to do and what not to do, more
And
importantly.
and I think you should write a book, and I think we would be more than happy to market that book here. A couple things I want to bring home again. So in listening to the original part of the story, and then
Hmm.
again driving it home here, persistence is again just the obvious thing I'm
Yeah,
seeing, but also you talk about listening to feedback. So you got feedback from appraisers to start with, and you got feedback from banks. And it seems like part of your organic growth is being willing to stop and listen to the feedback and then
yeah,
adjust your processes as necessary. And I think that's one of the things that people trying to come into the business, I think sometimes they may need to seek more feedback along the way. Because quite
for
honestly,
sure.
we don't learn if we don't seek feedback. That for entrepreneurs, for people trying to get into a business, the only way we're going to learn is fail, which we all do on a regular basis, but you're trying to avoid the colossal failure. But then the other thing is just talking to your clients, and for trainees, your initial client is the appraiser you'd like to work for, or a
Right.
group. Listen to what they have to say, pay attention to the feedback, and adapt. The other thing is, and I know, this is pre AMC being, a huge thing. You guys are
Hmm.
running basically an appraisal management company early on.
Hmm.
Um, but the focus on sell, 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 and then come back and work on process. How do we got the order? Now, how do we do it? Right.
Exactly.
I think for newer appraisers, I'm not offended by the appraisal management company idea. I'm not offended by the notion of it. I know some appraisers are really upset about appraisal management companies. And look, there are some appraisal management companies out there that take advantage of appraisers, but there are some that are really good to work for.
Hmm.
But one of the things that hits me is for I'm just going to suggest for a period of time during COVID, it was so easy to just sign up for as many AMCs as possible, and just the work was rolling in.
Hmm.
And I think for young appraisers coming into the business, maybe return to go sell your services to specific, go sell yourself, and then figure out how to do the work.
Right.
I think that's a really interesting thing to take out of what you've been saying so far. And look, this leads us to the question. You do some work with trainees, bringing people into the business. You do some specific work with women, getting them into the business. But talk to me about why you think it's so important right now in this kind of wonky market. Why is it so important to bring new people into the industry? And what is Nan doing about bringing trainees into the industry?
Yeah, it's such an important topic, and it's being talked about so much right now. I think we all know, the industry is aging out faster than it's replenishing, right? And that's a concern for the future of appraisals, the future of real estate, the future of the mortgage industry. It's incredibly important to bring in new blood because we need, first and foremost, diverse perspectives, fresh energy, people who are ready to embrace technology and evolving regulations. This is not going away. So beyond just numbers, we need people who are passionate, who have that persistence, right? Who are passionate about the integrity of the profession. We can't afford to wait for a crisis like COVID to take action. We need to be intentional now about building the next generation of qualified, ethical, and well-trained appraisers.
Yeah.
And from Nan's standpoint, things that we're doing, it's a proactive approach, right? We're partnering with appraisers who are willing to mentor and onboard trainees, and we're advocating for lenders to expand their guidelines and accept trainee involvement. We've also been working behind the scenes to educate our clients on how safe and effective it is to utilize trainees under the proper supervision. And internally, we've created awareness, looking for ways to sponsor and support educational pathways for those that are interested in appraisals as a career, really just focusing on bridging the gap between veteran appraisers and newcomers,
Yeah.
lenders and regulators, and just the messages, let's ensure the sustainability of the appraisal profession.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now, I want to hear a little bit about this Rise program and other events that Nan is doing to support specifically women coming to this industry. Because look, if you look at the numbers, I am an avatar for this business. I'm almost 60. I'm white. I'm a dude. Like, talk to me. Talk to me about Rise and your support for women coming into the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So founded Rise Women in Mortgage about 3 years ago, with Linda Knowlton, who she's amazing. We started this initiative within the Florida Association of Mortgage Professionals. We just knew we needed a group, like we needed to carve out a space for women in the industry because representation matters, right? When women see other women thriving in this space, leading AMCs, running successful appraisal companies, title companies, any facet within the industry, speaking on panels, being expert, showing off their expertise and their experience, they start to envision that success for themselves. And that's why initiatives like Rise are so critical. It's to promote success, it's to celebrate opportunities and support women when they're in challenging markets like we are now, and mentorship. Like beyond that, we need more mentorship opportunities, financial support for licensing and education, flexible work models that support women at different stages within their lives. So I think another key point to that is really demystifying the appraisal profession. Being an appraiser is powerful and it comes with flexibility, autonomy, and impact. And I think as a whole, everybody needs to be louder about that in our industry.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the things I love about it, the ability to kind of, I mean, you can kind of set your own schedule. You can
Yeah.
kind of decide when I'm going to go out in the field, when I'm going to sit here and do analysis, those kind of things. It's a real look. This industry has been very, very good to me, and I like the appraisal profession in general. You did say something about this challenging market that we're looking at right now, which leads perfectly into the market has been kind of wonky of recent. What is something that Nan is doing right now during this contracting market? Number one, where do you see this market heading, into the summer, fall, those kind of things? And are we seeing any signs of better days ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. As a team, we'll kind of talk about like, man, this is going to be a tough year. And it's like, I don't remember a year that wasn't tough, right? We're in our 21st year of business this year. They've all been tough. There's always something happening. But, as far as Nan goes with managing a tough market, the size of company we are allows us to stay agile, quick, nimble, make decisions in response to market changes quickly, and really just focus on what can we control, right? Operational excellence, customer service, quality reports, building those relationships. So we've invested heavily in the last few years, into our own proprietary technology. One of those is our quality control technology, and that helps us to continue to create efficiencies while protecting our margins and without having to sacrifice service. So that's a big focus. Anytime you're in a tough, you want to kind of do what you can to automate and create those efficiencies and really kind of just focus on on servicing. We're also doubling down on education, not only for our team, but for our lender partners, our appraiser partners. We want to stay ahead of those compliance shifts and market demands. We have the UAD 3.6 coming up, right? This is a big focus for us. We know we have to be a resource to appraisers, to lenders, to integration partners. So doubling down on that and really making sure that we're ready for, early production, broad production, answering all the questions, having those conversations, demos, things like that. And most importantly, it all kind of ties back to listening to our appraisers, to our lenders, to our team, and challenging times, communication and alignment is really everything. As far as, what's down the road this summer or seeing signs of promise, I think we're starting to see, I know this term is used a lot, but that cautious optimism phrase, it's the volume isn't anywhere near where we would want it to be at this point, but
Yeah.
purchase activity is starting to slowly creep back up. Inventory is starting to loosen in some of the markets. We're seeing signs of our lender partners preparing for a busier second half of the year, which is encouraging. But beyond numbers, I think there's a mind shift that's happening right now where we're no longer waiting to get back to normal. We're kind of building our own new normal with innovation, technology, stronger partnerships. So that I think in and of itself is what is promising, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, Joni, let me do this. I'm going to take a real quick break and we're going to hear from one of our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Intercorp, a division of Norman Spencer, has your back. Comprehensive insurance coverage from a team that's always there when you need them. The team at Norman Spencer is ready to roll up our sleeves and dig into your toughest insurance questions. We're committed to appraisers and AMCs. Intercorp's programs are tailored specifically for the appraisal industry. Put our experience to work for you. Please contact Susan Lomeli, Lomeli, at norman-spencer.com to discuss your insurance needs.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Hal Humphreys, your host. I'm joined today by Joni Pilgrim from National Appraisal Network. Joni, I have absolutely enjoyed talking with you. I'm going to be honest here, I could listen to you talk about your business and about your process basically all day long. The way you deliver the information is very easy to hear, and I think you've got some really useful things to say. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. I do want to, the two things that I'm coming away with is be persistent and pay attention. The other couple of things that I kind of tangential that I'm taking away are sell, and then always continue to work on process. And I think you tell me what you think about this. UAD 3.6 is going to be a fairly colossal change in the way appraisers do their process. I think this is a really good opportunity to fine-tune the process and find some efficiencies and do things in a different way and end up being more productive and those kind of things. What do you think?
I'm looking forward to it. Remember, I was telling you, we kind of look at our 5-year plan, we'll look at our 5-year vision board and look back and go, man, imagine what this looks like 5 years from now. That's kind of where we're at when we're planning. In 5 years from now, this change is going to be a breath of fresh air, right? The reports are going to be easier to read. The quality is going to be better. The data can be digested by pretty much anybody that picks up an appraisal report, which that isn't the case currently, right? Some challenges that I see right off the bat is, you're going to have 2 different versions of appraisal reports. The legacy reports aren't going anywhere for a little while, and you've got the new UAD 3.6. I think that one of the benefits is the appraiser can complete the data points on site using mobile devices, which will eliminate, oh, I forgot to get this photo, or I didn't see this, and I need to go back to the property, reducing time, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have to make a trip out there and, really
And I
kind
think, sorry, but I think a lot of appraisers have voiced an opinion like this is going to take more time. It's going to take me more time. I mean, it may actually take you a little bit more time in the field.
in the beginning, yeah.
But as you, number one, as you learn that process and you're comfortable with it, you can shorten that time back to close to what we're doing today.
Right.
But the amount of time it saves on the back end is going to be substantial.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I just think it's going to create more trust in the data that's coming through on the appraisal, which
Yeah.
is, that's the point, right? So, and we want our lender partners to be able to make solid lending decisions based on the data that they find in the appraisal, along with everything else, right?
Yeah.
And if you can do that at the inspection while you're there, real time, not missing anything, that's a win. So,
Absolutely.
to your point, it might take a little time to get used to it, like that learning curve, but over time, I envision, I've spoken to many, many appraisers on this topic so far, that most of them are really looking forward to
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're
making
right.
the shift. Yeah.
So, Joni, one of the things that Jim Morrison does to me to trip me up and give me an opportunity to look like an idiot in front of the entire appraisal community is he brings in these anonymous appraiser questions. Jim, do you have an attempt to trip me up today?
I
Be nice,
do,
Jim.
but I think this one won't be too much of a trip up, as well as just helping out somebody new like Joni did when she got into this. So this says, "Hey all, I'm a new appraiser and not getting any orders. I received my certified residential appraiser license in late 2024 and went to work for a firm. I decided to leave that firm to pursue fee work. I've signed up for quite a few vendors, and there are vendors that I know offer a lot of work in the market area, but I've only gotten 3 orders in 3 weeks. Is there something I'm missing? Could it be I'm not an LLC? Hopefully this isn't a loaded question. What can I do to make myself stand out to potential clients?"
Ooh, am I taking this one?
Well, I think you can just kind of recap the entire conversation we just had.
I know, I was just gonna say persistence. No. Sell, sell, sell. Um, well, first of all, congratulations on getting certified and taking the leap into fee work. That takes courage and commitment, and we should be acknowledging that up front. Um, I don't think it's uncommon for new appraisers to experience a slow start, especially when you're transitioning from firm work to independent work. And I think that's true in any industry. You're just getting started, you're getting your foot in the door, patience, persistence, all of that, it takes a little bit of time. But few things to consider, I think that might help gain a little traction is that persistent. Well, first, before we even get into that, personal presentation really matters to AMCs as a representation of lenders. Um, Make sure that your profile is updated with your AMC partners and that it's complete, polished. It includes your coverage information, that's accurate. Your license and E&O information are up to date. Any detailed experience that you have in maybe complex or rural markets, even if it's limited, highlight the quality of work that you do and the importance that quality is to you, how important that is to you. Turnaround times. I know that everybody likes to complain about turnaround times, but the fact is everybody needs everything yesterday. The gap between lender expectations and what's realistic with appraisers is pretty far off, but I think that there's communication and updates throughout that really kind of help to bridge that gap. And that just lends to great customer service. So make sure that you've got to focus on that and communicate your key strengths. Following up and building relationships. This is where that persistence comes around. Don't just sign up. I know a lot of AMCs have just forms that you fill out and you go through an approval process and then you just are expecting an order to come through. Don't be afraid to call or email the vendor management teams directly. Introduce yourself, follow up, and make sure that your profile is up to date and let them know how you can support their current needs. I believe that that extra initiative does really stand out, and they will share your information with the operational teams that are the ones that maybe engage the appraisers for these particular assignments. Um, Asking for opportunities that maybe other appraisers avoid if you feel like you're up for the challenge and competent to complete rural market assignments or complex assignments, raise your hand. Sometimes these require a little extra work, but when volume is tight, reliability and, flexibility is a huge value add for appraisers to an AMC. There was a question in there about LLC versus maybe sole proprietorship. I'm not sure that it's typically a deal breaker. Maybe LLC helps you look more established. But I think really what matters most when you're looking to increase your business is your responsiveness, your reliability, and your attention to quality and communication. And then just, reputation takes time. So it might take you a few orders to really build that trust where the AMC starts to get to know you and they're like, I really like working with this appraiser. I send them an order, they respond quickly, we get it scheduled. The communication has been great, quality is great. So sometimes it takes a few orders to get that kind of established. But, overall, don't get discouraged. It's a tough market. It really is. But you're in a profession that really matters. And so just keep showing up and learning and reaching out, and the momentum will come. And when it does, you'll be ready for it. So that's my advice.
I think that's a wonderful answer. I want to touch on a couple of things that I think. All right, number one, the difference between an LLC and a sole proprietorship, I don't think that matters at all.
No.
I think you just show up and do the work. And I say that and you say, well, I can't get the work. I'm new to the business. I'm having trouble getting orders in the door. I'm going to go back to seriously persistence. Pay attention to the feedback you get. What can you do to stand apart? Well, Joni was talking about, reach out to specific people you'd like to work with, specific groups or AMCs or lenders or people you'd like to work with. This is self-serving to a degree, but come to Valuation Expo.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself to the lenders and the AMCs that are at Val Expo. Last year, my brother-in-law came to Val Expo for the very first time, and within 2 days at Val Expo, he had 3 new orders and 4 new clients.
Yeah.
Before he left the show. Like, he paid for his ticket to Val Expo just by getting new work there on the spot. One of the things that Joni pointed out is, how you present as a professional matters. Come to Val Expo, dress like a professional, behave like a professional, introduce yourself to these people that you'd like to meet. And I'm going to go a little bit further and say, do a little bit of upfront research and identify vendors that you would like to work with, be they direct lenders or AMCs, and then identify specific people at those companies that you can find if they're going to be at Val Expo or not, and reach out to them individually.
Yep, agree.
I don't know, Joni, if you've read the book Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. Do you know this book?
Yes. And I actually gave it to somebody as a gift last year for Christmas. It's so good.
Such a good book. And I got to say, Joni comes from the hospitality background. That's how you got into this mess.
Oh, yeah.
The book is about running restaurants, okay? But it has applications to anyone that's running a service business. Mm-hmm. And to this new appraiser who's newly certified, going out on their own, part of self-education, I think, would be get a copy of Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara.
Yep.
Read it all the way through and just think about how you can apply some of the things he talks about in there. Best of luck to you in getting your career started. And whoever the anonymous appraiser is that posted this question, if you're listening and you'd like to come to Val Expo, send me a note through the comment form down here, and I'll get directly in touch with you. Okay, Jim Morrison, do we have anything else we need to cover today?
No, that's great. And thank you, Joni, for joining us. And we also want to thank you for sponsoring Valuation Expo and doing the Hitting the High Note sponsorship with us. That's something new we're very excited about this year at Valuation Expo. It's going to be a great show.
You're welcome. And thanks for having me today. It was so great to speak with you.
Thank you so much, too. And if we have nothing else for Joni Pilgrim and Jim Morrison, I'm Hal Humphreys, and that is your Appraisal Buzzcast for this week.